everyone, my name is Katya. For those who are new to my channel, welcome. I am a senior at Princeton. I will be graduating soon in May, and I was recently admitted to Harvard to pursue applied math PhD. In today's video, I am gonna be talking about some of the things you should keep in mind when choosing a graduate program. If that's interesting to you, please continue watching. Actually, in this video, I'm gonna be talking more specifically about the STEM PhD programs because that's what I'm most familiar with, like math or applied math, computer science, stuff like that. If you're interested in the humanities, this video might still be useful for you, but some points might not entirely apply, so just keep that in mind. Point number one, the most obvious and the most important point, is that your prospective research advisor, the person that you will be working with, is the most important factor in choosing a graduate program. If you go to graduate school, you should have an advisor in mind that you're excited about working with, and you should be absolutely excited about doing research and spending 5 years as a student doing research. According to all of my conversations with different graduate students, you will be spending most of your time and energy on the work with your advisor, so you should choose that person extremely carefully, and you should have a very good fit, both research fit and also personality and character fit. In addition to this, another subtle but important point is that you should have in mind 2 or 3 other professors who work in your department or who can advise you in case something goes wrong when you're working with your primary advisor. So for example, it might happen that the research fit wasn't as good as you hoped it would be, or something changed, your interest changed during the first or second year in your PhD program and you want to switch. In order to do that, you should have a few people in mind that you can go to and who accept PhD students at that time. So when you're applying, you should look at one person who you're really excited about and 2 or 3 more who are also open to advising students like you if you needed that. I think that's very important because different situations happen. Even if nothing went wrong, like you enjoy working with your advisor, but then your advisor decides to move to a different university, or they go on sabbatical, or they need to take medical leave, something happens, you don't want to get stuck and be on your own. You want to have enough other people with research interests that are aligned with your own interests who can advise you. Also, something I wanted to add about, considering what professor you want to work with. One important point that I realized is that it matters whether the professor is more senior or more junior, like whether the professor has been doing academia for like 20 years or if the professor just starts. In the latter case, on average, the professor tends to be more hands-on and more interactive and more willing to help you out in case you get stuck, and you want to consider whether that is something that you want. In my opinion, it's good to have an advisor that is hands-on, especially during the first few years of a PhD. Another point related to whether your prospective PhD advisor is more junior or senior is the networks that they have. So like the people that they know, the collaboration they have established. Usually more senior people, they know a lot of people, they connect you with a lot of, collaborators, or if you want to do internships or something like that, that can be very helpful. I think one big advantage of being advised by junior faculty is, especially if you're interested in pursuing a career in academia, is that you will really see what it's like to become a professor. The first few years of being a professor, what it's like. I think it's very interesting and very important, and will give you a good idea of whether you want to do that in the future. I think another important point is you should really learn about the structure of the PhD program that you were admitted to or that you're considering. And what I mean by that is, for example, if they have preliminary examinations that you have to pass before starting the PhD program, like it is the case at Berkeley in the Berkeley Math Department, or if they have qualifying exams, which they usually do, but they can vary in terms of the structure. So some qualifying exams might be written, standard 3-hour exams, say, and some other qualifying exams might be more chill, 30-minute presentations about your research work that you have done during the first 2 years of your PhD. So it really varies, and I think you should carefully consider that when choosing a PhD program, because you should consider whether some of that structure will add stress to your life, and do you want that. For example, I did not want to go to Berkeley because they had very difficult preliminary exams that you should first try to pass a few days before the start of your first year, and it's just like extremely stressful, and only 2/3 of people pass during the first time, and I didn't feel like I want to be in that situation. Whereas at Harvard, in my program, I will have to do a presentation about my research at the end of my second year, which is much more appealing and exciting to me, because that's something that, that's like what I'm interested in and something that I can do. Another thing related to this is how many classes you have to take in your PhD program. So for example, at some programs you will only have to take a few classes and that's it. At programs such as mine at Harvard, the Applied Math PhD program, there I'll have to take about 10 classes, 2 of which could be like research classes, where it's basically I get credit for doing research. So you should consider whether you want to take that many classes or you want some program where they have fewer requirements. Now let's talk about the stipend and different aspects of financing your PhD studies. In case of the United States, I think most PhD programs in STEM are fully funded, for example in math or computer science or physics or chemistry. So you should consider the stipend that you will be receiving and whether this is something that is actually enough for your living expenses. Some universities in the US had many strikes over the past year where students complained about not having enough money to support themselves through their stipends, arguing to increase them. So you should really look into that, because it will be 5 years of your life and you want to live a relatively comfortable life. Related to this, you should look at the structure of your funding offer. I think in general your stipend can be a combination of a research assistantship and a teaching fellowship or assistantship. You should understand your teaching responsibilities. So for example, research assistantship just means that you will be doing research and you will be funded by your research advisor, but most programs ask you to teach at least one semester. Some programs, they require you to teach more than one semester and they don't necessarily guarantee you research assistantships. And I think that's very important, because if you're not very excited about teaching, you shouldn't go to a program where you have to teach 2 years and you're not guaranteed any research assistantships, because you'll be spending 20 hours a week on your teaching responsibilities and that will take time away from your research. Personally, to me, that was a big point when I was deciding between Harvard and Berkeley, because Berkeley I would have to teach during the first year or even 2, and that's like the main form of funding in the maths department, unless I get an external fellowship. I'll make another video about external fellowships like NSF, Hertz and others, so stay tuned. But yeah, so if you don't have that, you'll have to teach, and you didn't want that, and you also just want to make sure that you have the stipend guaranteed for your 5 years and maybe even the 6th year, because sometimes you need to have more time and you want to have funding guaranteed, because otherwise it will be very stressful, and we're trying to minimize stress in our lives, Next on our list is housing and location. In my very humble opinion, once you found programs where you have people who do research that interests you and those programs are decently funded, like you're comfortable with the stipends that they give, the next question is the location and the housing costs and the housing situation. Because you're going to live on a limited stipend, you want to make sure that you can afford housing. Generally speaking, it's a good rule of thumb to have housing that is about 30% or less of your income. Another point related to location is you want to look also at the broader intellectual environment that you will be in. So for example, in Boston, in addition to Harvard, you have other universities like MIT or Tufts that create a broader research network that you can tap into if you want. I think it is really beneficial to be in an environment where you can meet people who do research in your area and you can interact and collaborate and stuff like that. The last point that you should consider when you're choosing PhD programs is the ability to pursue internships outside of your program during the summer. For example, in programs like, computer science, machine learning, data science, usually people want to do internships outside of their program during the summer. But some professors might be, against industry internships during your PhD studies. So you should really talk to your prospective PhD advisor and confirm whether this is something that they would be okay with if you're interested in it. That's all that I wanted to share in this video. I hope it was useful. If you watched up until this moment, please leave an emoji in the comment. Tell me something interesting you took away from this video. If you have any questions, please ask them in the comments. I answer everyone. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. I'll be making a few additional videos about other aspects of PhD admissions process. So if that's something that interests you, please subscribe and I'll see you soon.